Okay, good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. It's Samach Zayin Amid Aleph. So if you remember yesterday on the bottom of Samach Vav, we had a machlokes whether Meruach Ovei Kochavim was poter or not. I don't remember if we actually went through it, but we said Meruach Ovei Kochavim Tanahi on the bottom of Samach Vav on Beis. Detanya Torm Mishal Yisrael Shal Yisrael Mishal Ovei Kochavim Shal Ovei Kochavim Mishal Chusim Al Chusim Mishal Kol Al Shal Kol Div Rabbi Meir Rabbi Yehuda. So the first opinion is that if I get presents from an Ovei Kochavim, from a Jew, from a Kusi, I can take off Truma and the Maasros from each of them. What does that show? That they're all on the same level. How are they all on the same level? They can only be on the same level if we hold that Meruach Ovei Kochavim is Eino Poter. That when the Ovei Kochavim does the Meruach, when they do the smoothing of the piles, it doesn't change the status. It doesn't make it Poter because it was done in the Rishus of a Ovei Kochavim, and therefore it's still 100% Chayav, and therefore when I get it, it has 100% biblical Chiyuv of Trumas and Maasros, and therefore I can take off Trumas and Maasros from their grain for grain that I got from Yisrael. But according to Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon, what do they say? They say Torm Mishal Yisrael Shal Yisrael Mishal Ovicham Shal Kusim Mishal Kusim Shal Ovicham V'Lo Mishal Yisrael Shal Ovicham Mishal Kusim Mishal Mishal Ovicham Shal Kusim Shal Yisrael. They say that you cannot go ahead and take off that which you got from the Ovei Kochavim because that which you got from the Ovei Kochavim is poter, right? Meruach Ovei Kochavim is poter from Trumas and Maasros, and therefore if you take off from that, then it's going to be poter. So why taking off at all? If it's poter, if them doing the smoothing, when they don't have to give Trumas and Maasros, so if them doing the smoothing is poter, why did it take off? So we said because on a D'Rabbanan level, you still have to take off from Meruach Ovei Kochavim. But on the D'Oraisa level, you don't have to take off anything from the grain you get from Ovei Kochavim. Therefore, I can't separate Truma from something that's only something that's only rabbinically required to something that's biblically required. But the bottom line that we need for our purposes is that Meruach Ovei Kochavim, that when an Ovei Kochavim does the smoothing, i.e. they're the ones that take the produce and develop it and do the threshing and the winnowing and the smoothing, according to one opinion, at that point, Eino Poter. The fact that it's in their possession when it's smoothed out does not potter from Trumas and Maasros, and when you get it, you need to give Trumas and Maasros. And according to the second opinion, definitely biblically, but let's just not get confused biblically and rabbinically, but according to the second opinion, for our purposes, Meruach Ovei Kochavim is poter, and once they do it, if it's then transferred to a Jew, you will not be chayav in Trumas and Maasros. That's Meruach Ovei Kochavim. Now the question becomes, so we discussed Meruach Hakdesh, right? We said that Meruach Hakdesh is Eino Poter, right? And then we had the whole back and forth yesterday. And we said even if you say in general, we said Meruach Hakdesh, I'm saying, is poter. And then we suggested that, well, according to the opinion who says you have to take off again, it's because lo nitnu mos ela l'tzarech lahen. It was only given for those purposes. That was yesterday. But Meruach Hakdesh is poter. Now we have a machlokas whether Meruach Ovei Kochavim is poter or not. Now we're going to talk about something else. Now we're going to talk about two other cases. Not Meruach, but Gilgal. We're going to talk about Gilgal Hakdesh and Gilgal Ovei Kochavim. Gilgal is when the Hakdesh goes in and they mix the flour and the oil and they knead it to make dough. So at what point is it chayiv and challah? So if they do the mixing, what happens? Gilgal Hakdesh poter. If Hakdesh does the mixing, then it's poter. Nan Hakdesha isasa. If I am makdish my isa, my dough, ad shelo Gilgala, before I mix it. So I have the flour and the oil and I haven't kneaded it together yet. Ufdasa, and I give it to Hakdesh, and then I redeem it, all before it's been mixed. Chayeves, because now I'm the one who's mixing it. Chayeves. Anytime, bottom line is, anytime Jew mixes it, Chayev and Chala. Anytime non-Jew mixes it, or Hakdesh mixes it for our purposes here, Pater and Chala, because Gilgal Hakdesh is Poter. Says the Gemara, Hakdisha Chelo Gilgala, another Misha Gilgala Ufdata Chayeves. Again, if I myself do the mixing, and then I give it to Hakdesh, then I'm poter. It's chayiv again because I'm the one who did the mixing, even though it went to Hakdesh in between. Hakdisha achelo gilgala. The only case it's going to be poter is when I'm makdish it before I did the mixing. The gilgala hagizbar, and Hakdesh did the mixing, at which point it was chal in Hakdesh's hands. Ve'achar kach pedasa. Then I'm poter. Patura shebeshas chovata haita poter. It's pretty straightforward. If they do the gilgal, that's basically the bottom line. The step that requires the challah is the gilgal, the mixing of the flour and the oil, the kneading basically, beginning of the kneading process. So if they do it, then it's going to be potered, and then even if I get it back afterwards, I no longer have to give challah. But if I do it, then it's not going to be potter. That's why in general, when you buy something, you could say that challah was taken off because it's not potter. Because a Jew is doing it, it belongs to them. Even though you're buying it, it's chayav and challah. So they took off for you, or you have to take off yourself. But again, over here, when hekdesh mixes it, they're potter. BAYT Rava, Gilgal ovei kochavim mai. Now, what's the story with Gilgal ovei kochavim? Is it like Gilgal hekdesh, which is poter? Is it like meruach hekdesh, which is poter? And is it like meruach ovei kochavim according to one opinion, or is it like meruach ovei kochavim according to another opinion? Let's see. Gilgal ovei kochavim mai misnatnan. We have a mishnah that tells us ger shenis gayer v'haiselo isa. There's a ger. He started cooking a lot of challahs before he was Jewish. He liked challahs because he once went to his Jewish neighbor and he asked him what that stuff was. So he started baking challahs, and he had the dough. Nase achelo nisgayer pater. If he made the dough and they're in his freezer and now he converts, he doesn't have to start taking challah off on anything because, again, at the time that he did the mixing and the kneading, he was non-Jewish, and therefore he was poter it by definition for all time. He was poter this dough. Mishen is gayer chayav. If he makes the challah or only mixes it again from the time that, if he had the flour and the water, but he only mixes it from the time that he becomes a ger, obviously he's chayav. Safek chayav, since challah is a deraisa obligation. If you're a safek, whether you, hard to understand exactly what the case is, like the guy didn't remember when he made the challah or not, but safek, if he mixed the challah when he was Jewish, or if he mixed it when he wasn't Jewish, right? So now the question is, what happened? So we have to be safek deraisa l'chumra, and he needs to take off challah. Even if he had done it already, he needs to take it off again, obviously, because we don't know. Ha-man kitanila. So who is this according to? So there's going to be two possibilities. According to this, what do we see? Gilgal ovei kochavim is pater, right? As long as he does it at the time that he's not Jewish, he's poter the entire Isa. So who does this hold like? Says the Gemara, is it divrei hakolhi v'afilu Rabbi Meir v'Rabbi Huda de mechayiv hasam? Again, this is Gilgal ovei kochavim. Now we're comparing it to meruach ovei kochavim. By meruach ovei kochavim, we had the first opinion that says meruach ovei kochavim is eino poter, that when he does it, it's still chayav in Trumas and Maisros. That was Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Huda. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon said that no, meruach ovei kochavim is poter. So do we say, and here we're saying that Gilgal ovei kochavim is, Gilgal ovei kochavim, we're saying is poter. So the question is, when we say Gilgal ovei kochavim is poter, is that divrei hakoli v'afilu Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Huda de mechayiv hasam, even Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Huda, who say that meruach ovei kochavim is not poter, when they do the meruach, it still needs trumas and maisros. Over here, patri hacha, they agree that if they do the mixing of the flour and the water, it will still need challah, it will not need challah to take it off. So challah will be poter if they do it, and by the meruach, it'll be eino poter. Why? Hasam hu dichstiv degancha yisera. Because what does it say over there? How do we know that meruach ovei kochavim is eino poter according to them? So they say, as Rashi explains, that it says the word degancha 3 times. It says the word degancha 3 times when it comes to meruach. That you have to go and you have to give trumas and maisros. So the Rashi explains the first degancha, nothing to talk about. First degancha tells you what? That only your dagan and not dagan hekdesh. That's why everybody agrees that meruach hekdesh is poter. Meruach hekdesh is poter because degancha v'lo dagan hekdesh. Now you have another degancha, which you would say is what? The second degancha says only your dagan and not dagan of ovei kochavim. Therefore, meruach of an ovei kochavim is poter. What does the third degancha come to tell me? Oh, it comes to tell me that the second degancha, which we thought excludes ovei kochavim, miyud achar miyud, ein miyud achar miyud, ella to include, and therefore an ovei kochavim who you would have thought is excluded is actually included in degancha, and therefore his meruach is eino poter. Right? Do you understand the logic? If he is included, that means that his meruach is just like the meruach of a Jew, which means just like the meruach of a Jew, you then have to take off trumas and maisros, eino poter. So to the meruach of an ovei kochavim, eino poter, still have to take off trumas and maisros. That's what the pasuk says. So these two deganchas are number 2 and number 3. So the Torah says, again, number 1, meruach of hekdesh for sure is excluded, degancha, if they do the meruach, pater and trumas and maisros. However, now it says, hasamu dechsiv over there, it says degancha, number 2 and number 3. Yisera, have a miyut achar miyut. Number 2, we would think excludes the Meiruach of Ovei Kochavim and say that it's poter. Number 3 is miyud achar miyud, miyud achar miyud ela l'rabos, afilu Ovei Kochavim, that even when they do the Meiruach, it's not going to be poteret, and you have to take off Trumas and Maasros. But that's only over there. But over here, of Al-Hacha, Trei Zimnei Arisosechem Ksiv, it says you need to take off challah from Arisosechem, from your dough. What does it say it twice? Chal Arisosechem Kedei Isaschem. One Arisosechem is Kedei Isasem. What does that mean? Who was commanded in the midst of challah? The door Hamidbar. What's their dough in the door Hamidbar? The man. So the Gemara says that how do we know how much kemach, how much flour you need to use in order to be mechayev challah? Right, I think we say today it's around 5 to 6 pounds of flour. It's like a little bit more than a 5-pound bag. Or I think if you use the entire 5-pound, I think they come in 5-pound bags. So if you use 5-pound bag of flour, you got to take off challah. Anything less, you don't. I think it's around 5 to 6 pounds. How do you know that? What's that based on? It's based on how big, what the volume of mun was. The volume of the mun that everybody got was 43 1/3 eggs. Therefore, again, the equivalent flour that you do 43 1/3 eggs of volume. I don't think you have to use 43 1/3 eggs, right? I don't think you use that much. 43 1/3 eggs in volume. Then you'd have to go ahead in flour. If you use that much flour, you'd have to go ahead and you'd have to take off, right? Nobody uses 43 1/3 eggs, as far as I know, to make challah. So it would be the volume of 43 1/3 eggs, which I believe is around 5 pounds of flour. But that's what Arisosechem teaches you. How much flour? What's the second Arisosechem? Here it's a little bit interesting because here it excludes hekdesh and ovei kochavim with one word. Over there, I guess since it had 3 of them, it said, well, we have to choose one. And Rashi actually asked, why did you choose to include, right? Why did you choose to include Meiruach Ovei Kochavim and not Meiruach Hekdesh? But it ends up that over here it says Arisosechem twice. One is to teach us how much flour you have to use, and one is to exclude and say only Arisosechem needs challah taken off, not if the gilgil, not the arisa, not the dough of an hekdesh or the dough of ovei kochavim. So according to this sad in Rava, he suggests that what? That by Meiruach, again, everybody agrees, by Meiruach ovei kochavim, there's an argument. But even the Man de Amar who says that by Meiruach ovei kochavim it's eino poter, and you still have to take off trumas and maasros, according to this sad, they would agree that by Gilgul ovei kochavim it would be poter and you would not have to take off challah. That was a suggestion. Or Dilma, maybe it's a machlokes across the board. Or Dilma, just like there it's a machlokes, here it's a machlokes as well. Why? O Dilma, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Kitani la de kapatre. Or maybe Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon again, which are the second opinion there, they hold it's pater. Of our Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, just like over there, they hold that Meiruach ovei kochavim does not exempt it from Chumas and Maasros. Gamre reishis. They're not going to learn this whole thing with what? Arisosechem, to exclude this and that. No. It says Reishis de Gancha, and it says Reishis Arisosechem. Just like over there, when it says Reishis de Gancha, which we just learned means what? According to them, Meiruach ovei kochavim is eino poter. We're going to make a hekesh to over here and say that Gilgil of ovei kochavim would not be poter either. Therefore, it comes out what? Reishis Reisha mehasam. Amar Rava yehe Rava de achse bechilma. So Rava says, please Hashem, come to me in a dream and tell me, yes, it's definitely machlokas by Meiruach. Is it also machlokas here, or does everybody agree here that Gilgul ovei kochavim is poter? Again, there's no sat to say that everybody agrees that Gilgul ovei kochavim is eino poter. There's a sat to say either Gilgul ovei kochavim is poter according to everybody, or it's a machlokas here as well. Amarava mandi amar Meiruach ovei kochavim poter, Gilgul ovei kochavim poter. Mandi amar Meiruach ovei kochavim eino poter, Gilgul ovei kochavim eino poter. So Rava decides that we don't make this diuk necessarily from Arisosechem according to everybody. You only make it according to one side, and actually you make, more importantly, you make the hekesh with reishis. And therefore, whatever you hold by Meiruach, you hold by Gilgil as well. And therefore, again, it comes out, according to Rava, that there's a machlokes by both by Meiruach and by Gilgil. One opinion says that when a non-Jew does the Meiruach and or the non-Jew does the Gilgil, it's not poter. It's like a Jew does it, and it's still going to be chayiv in chal. It's still going to be chayiv in Chumas and Maasros. That's Rabbi Yossi. That's Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon would say no. Just like by Meiruach, when they do it, it's as if a Jew did it. It's not as if a Jew did it, but it was done, and therefore it was done in their possession, it's pater. So too, when they mix the water and the flour, now it was done in their possession, and it's pater and challah. Once it's pater, it's always pater, and therefore, in both cases, it's going to be poter. The Gemara is going to ask 2 questions on this. Eisvei Rav Papa LeRava. Ovei kochavim shehifrish peter chamor or vechala. If an ovei kochavim separates a seh in order to redeem his firstborn, or he takes off chala from a batch, says the Gemara, modimo so shehu pater. We go to him and say, sir, it's very nice that you did that, but you don't have to. Therefore what? Chalaso ne'achelas azarim. Your chala is not hekdesh, it's nothing. You're not chayiv to take off chala. Upeter chamor goes eis ve'ovei bo. And your peter chamor, you can cut, you can go ahead and you can work it because you don't have to be podit, because at the end of the day, your peter chamor is not kadosh because you're a non-Jew. What do we see here? We see that their chala is not chala. That when the ovei kochavim does what's the name, that their chala is basically not holy, but it was poter. Because again, his chala, that's it. His chala was taken off. So we see that when an ovei kochavim takes off chala, he's poter it. But what do we make a diuk? Says the Gemara, ha-truma so asura. But this doesn't say anything about truma. That implies that only his chala is exempt when he takes off chala. But when he's meruach, his truma is still kadosh. Says the Gemara, that's not what you just said, Rava. Rava, you just said that everybody agrees across the board either way. Either the guy who holds chala, it's chala, that his chala is exempt, would say that his truma is exempt also. And the guy who holds that his chala is not exempt would say that his truma is not exempt either. But here it seems to be one and not the other. That's the first kasha. Says the Gemara, again, this Tana over here is clearly holding that what? That the gilgal of an ovei kochavim is poter. His chala, he was yotze, he doesn't have to take off any more chala, and it's not kadosh at all. Gilgal ovei kochavim is poter. What would we expect, according to Rava, this mandamar to hold? You would expect this mandamar to hold meruach ovei kochavim is poter as well. But it sounds like this ovei kochavim dafka is talking about chala, but when it comes to trumas and maisros, you need to take off trumas and maisros because meruach ovei kochavim is eino poter. That's one kash on Rava. Similar kash on Rava, ve'od eisvei ravina l'Rava, chalas ovei kochavim ba'aretz, that the chala that he takes off even in Eretz Yisrael, and for sure in outside of Eretz Yisrael, u'trumaso b'chutz la'aretz, and the truma that he takes off in chutz la'aretz, truma is only midirabanan in chutz la'aretz, modina so shupatu. We tell him very nice that you did that, but when you take off chala, it's not holy. I.e., what do we see? That his chala is poter. We don't say to him that you didn't accomplish what you need to accomplish. You took off chala, you didn't really need to. Thank you so much. It was so nice of you. Now when I buy chala from you, I don't have to take off chala. But it's clearly chala is poter. But what? What do you see? His chala is poter, but it's again, his chala is going to be able to be eaten by zarim. His truma is not going to ruin a mixture. We know that truma ruins a mixture. Not if you, right? Usually you need 51% to be batel. By truma you need 100 to 1. Right? Even 1/100th is going to ruin it. But what's the diuk we make from here? Ha trumaso ba'aretz asura umidames. We make a diuk here that even though this man Amar says that his chala is poter, when he takes off chala, it's not holy and it's poter, I no longer have to take off chala. But clearly, if he takes off truma and Eretz Yisrael, it doesn't accomplish anything because his meruach is mechayiv in truma, and I still need to take off truma. Again, against what Rava said. Says the Gemara, because Rava said whoever holds a chala is poter would say that truma is poter as well. Says the Gemara, "V'hayetana de Amar meruach ovei kochavim eno poter, gilul ovei kochavim poter, midirabanan gezerah mishum bali kisim." What does this mean? That means, again, we're within the mandamar who says that his chalaso is poter. So if you're in the mandamar that says that when he takes off chala, it poter is the whole thing, you would expect him to say that what? That meruach ovei kochavim is poter as well. Why over here are we saying that his truma is still holy and that we have to go ahead and take off truma again? Only midirabanan. On a biblical level, if an ovei kochavim does meruach, it's exempt from truma. So again, according to this mandamar, you're going to have another mandamar who's going to argue and say that both of them are not poter. But fine, within this mandamar, if an ovei kochavim does the gilgul, if he does the mixing, he's poter it from chala. If I buy that dough, I no longer have to take off chala. If he goes ahead and he does the smoothing, he's poter it from trumas and maisros. Why does it imply that it's not poter from trumas and maisros? On a derabanan level, if I then get that grain, even though on a deraisa level, the meruach of an ovei kochavim is poter, on a dirabana level, I still have to take off trumas and maisros when I get it from a non-Jew that did the meruach. Again, for sure, if I get the grain before the meruach was done, before he did any of the malacha, for sure, according to everybody, I need to take off trumas and maisros. It's dafka when I've gotten it after it was already processed. So now, according to this Mandi Amar, midirabanan, even though he holds, again, according to the other Mandi Amar who says that what? That meruach ovei kochavim is eino poter, for sure you need to take off trumas and maisros no matter what. But even within the Mandi Amar we're suggesting now, even within the Mandi Amar who says that meruach ovei kochavim is poter, And just like when you get challah from him, or when you get dough from him, you don't have to take off challah, you don't have to take off truma. Even that man d'amar would hold that on a d'Rabbanan level, you need to take off trumas and maisos. So it comes out that if you get anything from a non-Jew, according to everybody now, at the very least on the d'Rabbanan level, you need to take off trumas and maisos. What's the reason for this gzera d'Rabbanan? That when you get grain that's been meruach, that's been processed from an ovei kucham, even though on a biblical level it's considered to have been processed and it's considered to have been done, and since it was done in his rishos, it's patur from trumas and maisos. Why take off trumas and maisos? Because we're worried. What are we worried about? We're worried about the tricksters. What are we worried about the tricksters doing? We're worried about Gezer Mishum Bale Kisim, always those rich people. We're worried about the rich people. What are we worried about? Rashi gives two Lashonos. I'll stick with the second Lashon. What's going to happen? They have so much stuff. They have so much Trumas. They have so many products in the field, right? They own grapes and they own vineyards. And so what are they going to do? Well, they know that if they gather everything themselves into the Meiruach, they have to give a tenth or whatever it is. Obviously, I'm just exaggerating. They have to give $1 million to tzedakah. So what do? They're going to transfer over their grain to the goy. They're going to work out a deal with him. He'll do the meiruach, or even they'll do the meiruach while it's quote-unquote in the non-Jew's property, in his rishus. Then they'll take it back, you give the guy a little piece. Everything's pater and trumas and maisos, and that's it. That's why it's called harama. They're going to do trickery.
I thought that's why the d'Rabbanan was put in place, to make sure that...
That's why the d'Rabbanan... No, we're explaining. That's why the d'Rabbanan was put in place. Even though, according to this mandamar, on a biblical level, if you would do that trickery, Eina Chanami, on a biblical level, it doesn't matter. Lamaisa, you look at it and say, well, he did the meiruach, it was in his possession, or I did it and it was in his possession, and his pater trumas and maisos. The Rabbanan said, well, we're afraid that the rich people are going to trick everybody, they're going to trick God, basically, and therefore we're going to say that on a d'Rabbanan level, even if a non-Jew does the meiruach himself, to prevent this from happening, even when you don't do this trickery case. Anytime a non-Jew does the meiruach, it's still going to be chayav in trumas and maisos. Says the Gemara, I just want to get to the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, what am I up to? I'm sorry, I'm not saying. I thought I was done with the day. Okay. So now the Gemara says, well then, if that's true, that even though it was poter on a deraisa level, we still make you take off trumas and maisos only on a d'Rabbanan level when you get it from a non-Jew. So chala also you could do trickery. Why? Why are we not goes there? We said if you get dough from a non-Jew, so what's going to happen? You don't have to take off chala. Well, why are we not worried that I'm going to be a rich guy with a lot of dough? I'm going to transfer it all over to the Jew, to the non-Jew, and I'm never going to take off challah. Says the Gemara, "Efshar da'afila pachos mechameshes reviim kemach ve'od." Very interesting. You're right. You could do that by the non-Jew as well, but there's an even easier way. We're not going to make a gezerah by something with a non-Jew if you yourself can do the harama. Harama again means trickery. If you could do the trickery yourself, if you can get out of the chiyuv yourself, and you don't have to even bother going to him, we're not going to make that gezerah. We're only going to make the gezerah if the only way to get out of giving trumas and maisos, if the only way to get out of giving challah is by using the non-Jew, then we're going to make a gezerah that we don't want you to do that. But over here by challah, you can just bake challahs with less than the required amount of flour. Each time, use a 5-pound thing of flour if you really only need, right? Let's say you really want to make 25 pounds. So instead of mixing 25 pounds together, do 5 pounds at a time. Each 5 pounds is not chayiv and challah on its own. You have the same amount of challahs at the end, but you trick the system by just putting bowls of 5 pounds each and then baking them separately. So since I can get around the chiyuv challah anyway on my own, we're not going to go ahead and make a gzeira that, oh, really, you have to take off when you get from a non-Jew, even though mitzad adin, you don't have to take off.
You're allowed to do that halachically?
You're allowed to do that halachically, yeah.
So it's not trickery.
Again, it's trickery if you really want 25 pounds of challah, it's really trickery. If again, people like doing, like you have these women who get together every Thursday night and want to do the mitzvah of challah. This is somebody who doesn't want to take off the challah, so he bakes less than 5 pounds worth of kemach.
They paid for the kohen, right? I mean, there was
right. You had to give it to somebody. But the point is, again, it makes sense in Svara, right? That if there's a way around it without using the non-Jew, then we're not going to make a gzeira that now every time you get dough from a non-Jew, you have to take off challah. We can say, no, every time you get dough from a non-Jew, you don't have to take off challah. Why every time you get grain from a non-Jew, you have to take off trumas and maisos, even though it was poter also? Because we're worried you're going to use that way for trickery. So to prevent trickery, we're going to prevent that.
What's the workaround for this one?
What do you mean? So there is no, so that's the point. The workaround is this. The workaround is making challah with kemach less than 5 pounds.
I'm saying, so how come the Rabbanan allowed that?
No. The Rabbanan are not making gzeras on the workaround. The Rabbanan are making gzeras for the non-Jews to not give us another workaround. The point is that by Truma there was no other workaround. The only workaround was by the non. So they're not going to get rid of every single workaround. Halacha is halacha. But when it comes to be able to use non-Jews to trick the system, that we're not going to stand for. The system is built in itself with holes. I'm not saying chas v'shalom holes. It's built in that God gave you certain ways to get around it. Fine. But to go out of the system, that's not allowed. The Gemara is going to ask though, well, 1 second, by Truma there's a way to beat the system also legally, quote unquote. Right? It's like, your taxes, sort of, a little bit. No. Okay. Says the Gemara, 1 second. By Truma Nami, by Truma you could also beat the system. 1 second. By Truma Nami, Efshar da'avad like Rabbi Yoshia. What are you telling me that I need to make a gzeira by the non-Jews? For Truma I could beat the system at home also. How can I beat the system on my own? Da'am Rabbi Yoshia, when are you chayiv in Trumas and Maestros? Says the Gemara, marim adam marim. That's the word that we're dealing with. Harama, trickery. Marim adam al tuasu machnisa b'mot shala k'dei shebehem to'achelas ubtura mina meiser. So Rashi gives two lashonos. I'll just go with one. If you bring in the grain while it's still in its chaff, and you haven't taken it out yet, and now you're bringing it in, and now it's only roy lachilas behema when you bring it in. It's not fit for human consumption because you haven't taken it out of its shell. That's not chayiv in Trumas and Maestros if it comes into your house that way. Another thing we know is that if it doesn't come in, as we'll see in a second, inami da'ayila derech gagos v'derech karfifos. If you bring it through your roof or through your yard, it's not chayiv in Trumas Maestros because the pasuk says bisharecha, through your sharim. So if you bring it in either when it's not processed yet, or you bring it in a different way, you bring it in through your roof or through your yard, it's not going to be chayiv either. So there's a way around, a kosher way, quote unquote. There's a kosher way around Trumas and Maestros. If there's a kosher way around it, we shouldn't be making gzeiras. You're not going to bother going to your non-Jew. Therefore, in general, we should say, because again, you're basically penalizing all of the non-rich people because of the rich people. You're saying anytime your non-Jewish friend gives you a present, you have to take off Trumas and Maestros because we're worried that your Jewish neighbor is going to go ahead and use them as this trickery thing. So by Truma as well, we have a way around it. So why are you making this gzeira by Ovei Kochavim by Truma if you have this trickery? Says the Gemara, very interesting. Hasam b'farhesia zila b'milsa. Hacha b'tzina lo zila b'milsa. What does that mean? By challah, what is that? Challah is done privately. So we do think that if somebody wants to trick the system, they're going to do the trickery by challah. Because what do you have to do at home? You just, in your own private home, you separate in less than 5, you separate 5 pounds or less. You do 5 pounds or less at a time. Therefore, nobody's watching, except for God, of course. Nobody's watching. And therefore, you're going to do that. Therefore, we don't have to make a gzeira of the oicham because you have a legitimate way to get around the system. By Trumas and Maestros, even though it sounds like a legitimate way, nobody's going to do it. You're not going to hire a crane from Home Depot and start picking up your grain onto your roof to get into your house because everybody who passes by is going to say, look at that Joe Schmerel, Rabbi Spitz, look, again, he's trying to get around Trumas and Maestros. And everybody in shul is going to start rumors that I'm trying to get around Trumas and Maestros because they're going to see that I'm bringing it onto my roof. If they see that all of my chaff, that everything that I bring is not yet processed, they're going to say, look at that guy, he's trying to get around Trumas and Maestros. Since it's so public, the only way that the rich people are going to try to get around Trumas and Maestros, even though there is a way to beat the system, quote unquote, the only way they're going to really try to beat the system is through the non-Jews. Because then nobody sees anything. I sold it to them privately. They have no idea that it belongs to non-Jew. It looks like I'm just processing it regularly. Therefore, since there's a legitimate way by challah, even though we've brought 2 ways around it, one by Truma and one by challah, the one by challah is legitimately a good way around it that I'm going to do in the privacy of my own home. Therefore, I don't need to make a gzeira, a decree by a non-Jew. But since Truma is not a legitimate way around it, because I'm not going to go ahead and do it because I'm going to be embarrassed to do that way, even though, quote unquote, it would work. It's not a legitimate way around. Therefore, in order to prevent the rich people from going ahead and getting away from the chiyuv of Trumas and Maestros, they're going to go ahead and use the non-Jews, and therefore we have to make a gzeira that even though on a biblical level, Meruach Ovei Kochavim is poter, on a derabanan level, it's eno poter, and I'm going to have to go ahead and give, and therefore I no longer have the choice to trick them, because even if I give it over to them, I'm still chayiv on a derabanan level, and therefore, Shalom HaYisrael. Zak the Mishnah.
It still doesn't make sense if they're not going to make a zera. Because if it's purely a seira, they happen to make, if you're especially your baker and you're baking loaves and loaves and loaves, you're not going to want to do this kind of thing where pakas mashir.
Okay, maybe. One can argue. You're right. One can argue that they should have made the thing, but okay.
You're observing halacha because you're going through halacha.
But the point is that you could. Is that there's a legitimate way around it, where by Truma there's no real legitimate way around. Says the Gemara.
We institutionalize this like at Pesach, the fast of the first corn, and we sell our common. We have huge amounts of hummus that we sell, you know, I mean,
You're saying harama, even though you're not really supposed to. Yeah, so we do, right, but again, the point is that if there's a legitimate way around the system, then we want to prevent that. Says the Gemara, again, you have to remember, like Rabbi Black was saying, I mean, for the Kohanim, etc., for the Levium, like this was what they ate. Right. So if you're going to be able to get rid of that whole thing where the Ashir are not giving any tzedakah, imagine if none of the Ashir are giving tzedakah, that's a serious issue. That's going to have an impact on all of society. So the chal, okay, new, you give a little bit less, you give a little bit more. So it's just very, very interesting. Says the Mishnah. So now what do? We have the we have the omer, and what happened? We ground it, we said yesterday, into flour. Just do a little bit more. Balo li isaron. So now you go in and you take this flour, this isaron of flour of barley, which you have for the omer, and you got to treat it like a regular mincha. Nasan alav shmanu ulevona. So it's clear from Rashi that you don't do it in this order. Because what do? You put shemen on the bottom of the kli, then you put flour, like we said, then you put shemen on top, then you put the levona, then you mix the shemen and the levona, which is the yatsaku balal. You mix it together, and then at the very end, you put the levona on top. We said you don't mix the levona into it. You put the levona on top. Hinif higish, then you do the hanafa, you wave this whole mixture. You bring it hagasha to the southwest corner of the mizbeach. Kamat, you do the kamitza. This is the korban omer. Hiktir, you burn the kamitza. Vashar nechal kohanim. And then again, you burn the kamitza, you burn the levona, and then the rest gets eaten by kohanim. Mishakarav haomer yotzin emotzi and shuk Yerushalayim shumale kemach. Kli shalo b'rtzon chacham divrei meir. Very interesting. So the Gemara says again, when did they do the omer? They did the omer, they brought it on the first day of Chol HaMoed Pesach. What happened? They brought it in the morning, let's say. If you went to Machne Yehuda 5 minutes later, they had flour, they had toasted kernels, they had everything from Chadash, from the new grain. They literally are waiting to open up the stores. As soon as they hear the omer was brought, they open up the stores, and now you can buy fresh Chadash flour and fresh Chadash toasted kernels that weren't able to be eaten 5 minutes ago. So Rabbi Meir says that was shelo b'rtzon chachamim. The Chachamim weren't happy about that. They couldn't do anything about it, but they weren't happy about that. Why? Because, as Rashi says, they were nervous. They made a gzeira, shema yochal k'sheyikser v'yochal chadash kodem ha'omer. They were nervous that if people would prepare the chadash food, the flour and the toasted kernels before the omer was brought, which clearly it was done, if it's ready 5 minutes after you bring the omer, then it was clearly prepared beforehand. They're afraid that while you're cutting it, while you're preparing it, you're going to pop a few kernels into your mouth. Right? Nothing like a good fresh kernel from a barley stalk. You're going to pop it into your mouth, and lemaisa, you're going to be chayav in eating chadash. So the Gemara says it was shelo b'rtzon chachamim. Sounds like they really made gzeira, and maybe it wasn't that it wasn't just that they didn't like it. It was usher for them to do it, but lemaisa, who listens to rabbis anyway? Rabbi Yehuda omer b'rtzon chacham hayosin. Rabbi Yehuda says no, it was perfectly fine. They didn't make any gezeiras. They weren't worried that by letting people prepare, they're going to eat it. You can prepare, you can go through the process, you can do whatever you got to do, but lemaisa, we're not going to make a gzeira that you're going to eat it. Says the Gemara, v'lo gazer Rabbi Yehuda dilma asi lemecha minei. Just want to go 5 more minutes. So did Rabbi Yehuda not make a gzeira? Rabbi Yehuda again says, b'rtzon chachamim, that it was fine. They asked the rabbi said, no problem, you want to prepare, you can't eat it, but you want to prepare everything so that it's ready to go, then lemaisa, it's okay. Obviously, you can't do this on Pesach, right? You can't prepare the pizza on the 8th day of Pesach for that night. Somebody once tried that in Queens, and they were shut down the next day. There's an Israeli guy, officially doesn't hold, okay. But lemaisa, over here we're talking about you're allowed to prepare. So he says you're allowed to prepare because we're not worried you're going to eat it. Really? We see elsewhere that Rabbi Yehuda is worried you're going to eat it. Where? Or Minhi, we have another brisa that says, Rabbi Yehuda omer boken or arbasar, you do bedikas chametz on the night of the 14th. Uva arbasar shacharis, you do bedikas chametz. If you don't do it at night, you do it the next morning. Uvishas abir, you could do it during the first 6 hours, but after that, you can no longer do it. Why? Because we're afraid that if you do it after the zman for chametz is aser, what's going to happen? You're really hungry. You're going to be searching behind your cabinet. You're going to find a little piece of ragalach, and you're going to pop it in your mouth. You're going to eat the chametz. You're going to forget. Who doesn't eat the chametz that they find during bedikas chametz? You're going to eat the chametz that you find during bedikas chametz. Chachamim lo badach. Chachamim say, no, you could even check during the moed. We're not worried. We'll get to the chachamim in just a minute. So you see over here that Rabbi Yehuda is not worried. That Rabbi Yehuda is worried that you're going to eat something that's asur to eat. And chachamim are not worried. And over here, it's the opposite. Over here, Rabbi Yehuda is not worried that you're going to come in and pop the chadash in your mouth before it's mutter. And the chachamim, Rabbi Meir, is worried. And over there, Rabbi Meir is not worried that you're going to pop the chametz in your mouth while you're doing bedikas chametz. So Amar Rabba Shani Chadash Mitoch Shelo Hitartelo El Al Yedei Kituf Zacharhu. The halacha is that if you cut, in general, when you cut the grain, you cut it with a magal, you cut it with a sickle. The halacha is based on the pasuk in the Torah that if you cut, you're allowed to cut the grain before the omer is brought, but if you cut it before the omer is brought, the new grain has to be cut with your hands. It needs to be done al yidei kituf by plucking. That's the halacha. That if you want to pull the grain before the omer is brought, it has to be done. Now again, we talk about it goes from the time I think that it grows. So like when they bring the korban omer on the second day of Pesach, it makes everything that was processed or anything I think that grew a certain amount is now yotzeid with that omer, and now you can do whatever you want to it. Anything that then grows after that, you have to wait for the next. Anything that begins to grow after that, you have to wait for the next year. So if you want to pull anything that began to grow after the omer was brought last year, you can't cut it with a sickle until after the second day of Pesach when the omer is brought next year. But if you want, you could pluck it out with your hands. So you could still use it, you could pluck it out with your hands. Says Gemara Yidei Kituf, Zachor, because when you pluck it with your hands, you're going to remember that you're doing a shinoi. If you're doing a shinoi, you're not going to pop one into your mouth. Says Gemara Amalei Abaye, Tina Ksira, that's very nice. So then we're trying to figure out how did they prepare the Machne Yehuda, because they went ahead and they plucked it with their hands. Okay, and there was a shinoi, therefore we're not worried that they were going to eat it. Says Gemara Abaye, Tina Ksira Tchina Veharkada Mayikal Memer. That's very nice. That solves the problem of plucking it, of cutting it. How did they prevent the guy from going ahead while he was grinding it or while he was sifting it from popping them into his mouth? There's no shinoi there. No, you're right. That if you did this before the omer was brought, you not only had to pull it out and pluck it differently, you had to grind it differently with your hands, and you had to go ahead and sift it with the opposite side of the sieve. You had to do a shinoi for every part of the process. Says the Gemara, that's a very nice suggestion, except Beish Shalchin de Sharia Ksira. There's a problem. Because there's such a thing as an irrigated field, which you're allowed to do the ksira even before you bring the omer. You're allowed to go ahead and you're allowed to cut regularly this field, which is an irrigated field in the valley. You're allowed to cut regularly. And Rashi suggests why. Since the produce there was very bad. And in general, you're only allowed to bring omer from good produce. Therefore, they're not going to make a gzeira on this thing because since you can't bring the omer from it anyway, you're allowed to cut it regularly. The problem is that they're going to go to this field, in the irrigated fields in the valley, they're going to cut it regularly, and there's no shinoi, there's no sign that's going to remind them not to pop the things. So your suggestion that the way that they got away with it in Machane Yehuda was because throughout the process they did a shinoi, but we know that some fields don't need a shinoi, and nevertheless they're going to sell that flour. That's not going to prevent us from, it's not going to prevent them from popping the kernels. Therefore, that can't be the suggestion. So how is it possible that it was okay? We'll do it afterwards. El Amar Abaye, Chadash Badil Minei, Chametz Lo Badil Minei. He explains Rabbi Yehuda. You know why Rabbi Yehuda wasn't concerned with them preparing the stuff and selling it as soon as the omer was brought? Because you're used to staying away from Chadash the entire year. Usually you stay away from Chadash. You only eat Yashan the entire year. Again, everybody kept Yashan. A lot of people still keep Yashan. You only kept Yashan and you didn't eat Chadash. So if you always stayed away from Chadash, then again, until right after Pesach when you're allowed to eat everything, because there is no Chadash, because everything is now Yashan, but you stay away from Chadash for 9 months a year, we're not worried now when you start going before the omer is brought that you start preparing, you're going to start popping kernels. You know you're not allowed to pop kernels. But chametz, which you eat the entire year, when you see that ragalach during bedikas chametz, you're not going to remember, oh, I can't eat chametz now. You're going to forget that you can no longer eat chametz, you're going to pop it in your mouth. That's the difference. So really, we are worried, but we're only worried for things that you're used to doing anyway. So by chametz, we're not going to let you do bedikas chametz after the 6th hour, because you might pop it in your mouth, because you're used to eating chametz. Badil means to separate, to stay away from. But Chadash, which you stay away from anyway, we're not going to make a gzeira. Says the Gemara, Amar Rava, de Rabbi Yehuda kasha, de Rabbanan, de Rabbanan lo kasha. So, de Rabbanan, de Rabbanan lo kasha, you have solved Rabbi Yehuda. You explained to me why in the case of Chadash, Rabbi Yehuda says that they can prepare Machane Yehuda before the omer is brought, because they're not going to eat the grain anyway, because they know to stay away from Chadash. And you explained to me why by Chametz, he says you can't search for Chametz after Pesach started, because we're afraid you're going to pop the ragalach in your mouth during Bedikas Chametz. But Rabbanan also contradict themselves. Why are they choshesh by Chadash that the guy shouldn't be that they shouldn't be preparing for Machane Yehuda before the omer is brought, because you might pop one in their mouth. But on Pesach, they're not afraid that if you do Bedikas Chametz on Pesach, you're going to pop the ragalach in your mouth. Says they're going to Elam Rava, Yehuda, Rabbi lo kasha kedishanin, like we just said. Rabbanan lo kasha, why? Who atzmo mechazer alav l'sorfo mechal achil minei. He says we're worried in general. According to the other opinion, we're not worried in general, right? We're not worried in general because you're going to stay away from Chadash always, and we're only worried about Chametz because you're usually here. Here we're saying that according to Rabbi Meir, we are worried. And therefore by Chadash, we're worried you're going to pop one, even though you don't eat Chadash the whole year, we're worried you're going to pop one while you're preparing it, and therefore you can't do it. Why by Chametz are we not worried? Because think about what the guy is doing. He's doing Bedikas Chametz to look for Chametz to burn it. So to think that while he's going and doing an action specifically to find chametz to burn it, especially on Pesach, to think he's then going to forget what he's doing in the first place, and he's going to take that thing and find it and pop it in his mouth, that's a ridiculous suggestion. By the chadash, he's just cutting grain. He's working in the field all day. He gets hungry. It's understandable. Even though he doesn't eat chadash throughout the year, it's understandable he's going to pop it in his mouth. But over here, to suggest he's going to eat the chametz during bedikas chametz, that's a ridiculous suggestion. That's Rabbanan's understanding. Says the Gemara, one second. Says the Gemara, Rav Ashi gives a different reason. And he gives a reason not for Rabbanan. So everybody agrees that's the reason for Rabbanan. We're not afraid that you're going to pop the chametz in your mouth. Really, we are afraid. We want to make gzera like by chadash, but we're not afraid you're going to pop it in your mouth while you're searching for chametz. Rav Ashi gives a different reason for Rabbi Yehuda, not because we usually eat chametz during the year and we don't eat chadash during the year. He gives another reason. To Rabbi Yehuda lokash, and we're going to reject it in a secha. Second, kemach kali tnan. He says, read the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, what are they selling there? They're selling they're selling flour and toasted grain. Now, for those that are familiar, that eat it at home, toasted grain is not something that's edible. So they're selling flour and toasted grain. They're not edible products. So if they're not edible products, that's why Rabbi Yehuda says it's not a problem, because they're not edible. Says Gemara, good try, but how did they get to that state? At some point during the process, they were edible. And if you're telling me that it's okay for them to sell them in Machane Yehuda, then they're basically telling me it's okay to prepare them. Well, at some point in the process, they were edible, and you weren't worried. Says the Gemara, V'hadar Avashi Brusahi, it's a mistake. Teinach mikali velach. I understand that right now, if I freeze the frame and I say, look, in Machane Yehuda, what's going on right now? They're selling non-edible things. That's why there's no gzera. But how did it get there? Ad kali ma'ikal meimar v'chitema chanami de kitu v'chideraba beis hashochin d'shar ksira ma'ikal meimar. Even if you say that they used different types of things and they used their hands and they used the back of the teeth, but still there's still going to be fields like we mentioned. There's still going to be fields where they're allowed to do it regularly. And how are you going to prevent that? Ela hadar Rav Ashi brusahi. Rav Ashi's suggestion is not right, and therefore again the bottom line is that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the reason that we're not gozer by the chadash is because at the end of the day, we're not worried. You stay away from chadash the entire year. We're not worried that they're going to eat it now. And by chametz, it's okay because at the end of the day, lamaisa, and by chametz, according to him, it's a problem because you eat chametz the entire year. You're going to pop one. And according to Rabbanan, the opposite. We don't make gzeras in general. We're not worried that they're going to eat chadash. They usually stay away. And by this case of chametz, we're saying that we are not worried because if you're searching for chametz, you're not going to go ahead and pop one in your mouth.